Welcome to video 9, which will focus on the words that create dependent clauses. Let me begin with the most important statement in this video. Only subordinating conjunctions and relative pronouns can create dependent clauses. No other words can do that. But let's begin by defining dependent clauses. Dependent clauses are groups of words that have a subject and a verb. That's what a clause is. A clause is a group of words that has a subject and a verb. But dependent clauses are different. They are different because they cannot stand alone as sentences. They cannot be punctuated as complete sentences. That's what makes them different. Here are 5 complete sentences. Each one has a subject and a verb. The subject is in yellow, the verb is in green. And none of them have a subordinating conjunction or a relative pronoun. So each one begins with a capital and they end with a period. These are complete sentences. We call them independent clauses. They can be alone as sentences, independent clauses. But as soon as we add a word like as, before, since, after, when, it changes them completely. They are no longer independent clauses. They can no longer be punctuated like a complete sentence. I cannot put a capital A and I cannot put a period because this is a dependent clause. It's an incomplete thought. As Mario worked on his car, what happened while Mario was working on his car? So we would need another clause, an independent clause. As Mario worked on his car, his mother came home from work. That would be an independent clause. But if you have a subject and a verb with these kinds of words, not a complete sentence. Not a complete sentence. That's what makes them dependent clauses. Now, in video 7, I introduced 9 subordinating conjunctions. These 9 subordinating conjunctions. Video 7 dealt with prepositional phrases, prepositions. And I introduced these 9 because these 9 words can be prepositions and they can also be subordinating conjunctions. These words can function in 2 different ways. And I showed that to you by showing you this box that has 2 columns. On the left side, there are the 9 words: as, after, because, before, since, then, till, until, while. But the parts that are underlined do not have subjects, do not have verbs. These are prepositional phrases. They begin with a preposition, all of them. They begin with a preposition and they end with a noun, like clown, like celebration, or an object pronoun, like him, like us. So these are prepositional phrases. Now, on the left side, we have the same words. As, after, because, before, since, then, till, until, while. But here, the words are followed by a subject and a verb. All of them. Party was. It was raining. Party was. You are. We needed. Get. I get. until I go. Subject and verb. These are clauses. They have subject and verbs. But they are dependent clauses. They are dependent clauses. The independent clause is we laughed, we left, we didn't go, we left, I'm staying home. Excuse me. She gave us more. I can't pay you. I can't call you. He crashed. All of these, I could put a period. These are independent clauses because there's no subordinating conjunction. Okay? So these are the dependent clauses. Okay? And these 9 are special. These 9 are special because they can function as subordinating conjunctions and they can function as prepositions. Okay? So now I'm going to show you the other 15 subordinating conjunctions. Okay? And I'm going to show you examples that show you how in a sentence you can have 2, 3 dependent clauses side by side. Side by side. Okay? All right. Now, these are the 15. If, although, how, unless, why, as if, though, when, where, so that, as though, as long as, whenever, wherever, and that. And I'll be talking about this one a little bit more. Are any of these difficult for you or new to you or that you do not understand completely? Unless, for example, is a little tricky to use. Because when you use the word unless, you have to have a clause in the negative. If you tell your son or daughter or your friend, you cannot go today. You cannot go today unless you finish your work. So if you use unless, you have to use a clause, an independent clause that is in the negative. In the negative. Okay? Are there any other that are kind of new to you? All right. So let me show you the first example. Here's a sentence that has 3 dependent clauses. 3 dependent clauses. Whether you go or stay. Subordinating conjunction, subject, verb. Whether you go or stay. As long as you want. Subordinating conjunction, subject, verb. So that you can get on your feet. Subordinating conjunction, subject, verb. 3 of them together. And notice, there's no comma. There's no comma between the first and second. There's no comma between the second and third. There's a comma here, but that's because the dependent clauses come before the independent clause. If you put this at the end and put this first, like this, it will be totally up to you whether you go or stay as long as you want so that you can get on your feet. Here, there's no comma at all. Because when you have an independent clause and you have a dependent clause, no comma is needed. No comma is needed. But if you begin with a dependent clause and then you have an independent clause, then you do need a comma. Okay? Any questions? All right. Now I'm going to show you another example. Before I show you that example, I forgot that I had this. If you have a capital and a period, and you have only dependent clauses, what you have then is an incomplete sentence. What you have then is a sentence fragment. Because you need, every sentence must have at least one independent clause. One group of words that has a subject and a verb that doesn't have this or this or this. And here, there's no independent clause. It's an incomplete sentence. And one paper in particular, I saw a lot of these sentence fragments. Okay? All right. So here is the next example. It's like the other one. It has 3 dependent clauses. One beginning with when, one with if, and one with wherever. When the time comes, if you decide to go wherever you want, I'll understand. Okay? It's just like the other one. But now I'm going to show it to you in a different way. The same 3 dependent clauses, but they're different. They're presented differently. Here they are. What is different between this sentence and this sentence? Angel?
There's 2 prepositions together. There's 2 prepositions together.
There are 2 prepositions or subordinating conjunctions. 2 subordinating conjunctions. You are right. You are right. They're together. So that means that this dependent clause is inside. It's inside, embedded in this dependent clause. You can see it better here with 2 brackets. Now, this isn't very common, but in the article that we are reading on Linda and Stuart Resnick, in the sentences that we are going to look at after this lecture, there is at least one sentence like this, where there are 2 subordinating conjunctions. And that indicates that a dependent clause is inside another. Okay? All right, very good. So I want to get back to the 15 other subordinating conjunctions because I need to focus on this guy. And I talked about that in video 7, and I called it the chameleon. And I called it the chameleon because it is the only word in English that can function in 4 different ways. In 4 totally different ways. It can function as a subject pronoun. If I say, that is simply not true. This is the subject. Subject pronoun. It can function also as an object pronoun. Do you agree with that? This is the subject. Do you agree with that is the object pronoun of the preposition with? So that can function as an object pronoun. It can also function as an adjective. If I say that president doesn't care about this country. And it can function as a subordinating conjunction. He says that the newspapers and televised news programs are the enemy of the people. This subordinating conjunction is connecting these 2 clauses, and it's creating a dependent clause. But there's a 5th characteristic of the chameleon. There's one more reason why this word is unique. And that is that sometimes it disappears and it becomes invisible. This sentence looks like it's exactly the one that I just showed you. But that is not there. So it looks as if there are 2 independent clauses. You know, I could put if I put period here, capital here, that would be an independent clause. Newspapers and televised news programs are the enemy of the people. But that's not what this sentence really says. Because, you know, to have 2 independent clauses next to each other with nothing in between them, that's a big mistake. That's a big mistake. That's called a fused sentence. Okay? So, you can see that the word that is there. It is understood. Okay? But sometimes we just don't see it. Here, many people believe he is wrong. So when you see a sentence like this, you have to, okay, what's happening here? Is this an independent clause, or is the chameleon right there? In the sentences that we are going to look at from the article on Linda and Stuart Resnick, there are many, a good number of sentences like this. Did you find them? Well, we're going to compete and find out. Okay? But we need to remember that sometimes the word that is missing. And that means that it is optional. It is optional. We can write the sentence this way, or we can write the sentence this way. Okay? All right, very good. So now, I want to tell you about the 8 relative pronouns. 3, 6. So what number? This should be 6, huh? This should be 6. There. All right. Now, I have asterisks on which and what, because these can be adjectives. Okay? All right. But now here's the word whose. Whose can also be adjective. But whose is different. Whose is different. You notice here, which book are you reading? What problem are you discussing? There's only one clause here. There's only one clause. These are independent clauses. This word, whose, when you use it, you create a dependent clause. And I'm going to show you with examples, okay? I'm going to show you with examples. All right, very good. So let's go to the examples. Here is a librarian who died in 2015, left $8 million to his alma mater. This has no commas. Robert Morin, who died in 2015, left $8 million to his alma mater. Now, what is the difference between this sentence that has no comma and this sentence that has commas? We call this non-essential clause. And we call this okay? And we call it that because this section, we could not leave it out. We could not leave it out because we would have left a librarian left $8 million to his alma mater. And we would not know which librarian. So it's the librarian who died in 2015. We need that information. This is essential information. And so we don't put commas. Okay? Essential dependent clause. Here, this sentence says, Robert Morin, if I leave these out, Robert Morin left $8 million to his alma mater. So we already know who left the $8 million. This information of when he died is not really essential. It's not really important to know the sentence. Okay? So notice. Here, this is general. A librarian. A librarian. A teacher. A student. You don't know who. But when you mention a specific person or a specific thing, then you can use the commas because you already have the identity. Okay? Now, here's the second thing that I want to tell you. These two relative pronouns, this is a relative clause. And I want to tell you why it is called relative. Relative. You have relatives, right? You have cousins and nephews and things like that. They are related to you by family. Well, these clauses, they're related to the noun that comes before. You see? This is the librarian. And this person that died is Robert Moran. So when we have a relative pronoun, we're going to have a clause that is providing information about a noun that comes before. They're related. That's what they're called. Relative pronoun, relative clause. Okay? All right. All right. I have another example. This one doesn't have commas. This one has commas. The same thing will be true. Oh, look at that. This arrow doesn't fit. Okay, but this one, no, it doesn't. All right. Christine Blasey Ford is the woman who accused Judge Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault, which he denied. This sentence has two relative pronouns, who and which. So this sentence has two relative clauses, two dependent clauses introduced by a relative pronoun. Okay? All right. Now, here, no comma. Here, a comma. There's no comma here because we need this information, not because of, we know Christine, but because of woman. The woman. It's not specific enough. She's the woman who accused the judge. And so, no comma. But on the second one, we're talking about sexual assault. This noun. This is specific. This is specific. So, which he denied, we can put commas because we could leave it out. We could leave it out. We could not leave out this part. Christine Blasey is the woman. The woman what? Well, she's the woman who accused the judge. Okay? So it's essential. It's essential. No comma is needed. But here, a comma is okay because assault is specific enough, and so it could be left out. It's just added information. Added information. The second sentence, Dr. Ford. Now, this is the same person, right? It's identified. So this can be extra. Dr. Ford, who is a psychology professor at Palo Alto University, testified in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Okay? So here again, the difference between non-essential, 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 and essential. No commas. Questions? All right. Very good. Now, this is another one. This has commas. This doesn't. Dr. Ford, whose testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee made national headlines, received angry phone calls, angry phone threats before she testified. This one is a subordinating conjunction, huh? Subordinating conjunction, not a relative pronoun. Here is the adjective. Here is the adjective that I showed you. This word is describing, this is a possessive adjective. Possessive adjective. In Spanish, this word means cuyo. Juan fue la persona cuyos padres nos están visitando. Okay? Whose, cuyos, possessive. Okay? All right. So when you use this word, you cannot just have whose testimony. You cannot stop there. it demands a subject and a verb. So even though this is not a pronoun, it's not a relative pronoun, but it's a possessive adjective that creates a dependent clause. You cannot use this word without having a dependent clause, except if you ask a question. Whose bag is this? Whose jacket is this? That's an independent clause. One clause. So in that one, you can have an independent clause. But when you have something like this, I have an independent clause right here. Dr. Ford received angry phone threats. So when I have this in the middle, I'm going to have a dependent clause. Dependent clause. Okay? All right, very good. So, and this dependent clause is non-essential. Because we already know Dr. Ford received angry phone calls. This is the heart of the sentence. This is the heart of the sentence. This is added information. Okay? So your homework is to write sentences that are non-essential and essential. So here I'm giving you examples. The next example, the FBI interviewed individuals that know Dr. Ford and Judge Kavanaugh. Now, notice, this is not a subordinating conjunction because this is a verb. And the subject of that verb is this relative pronoun. And this relative pronoun refers to these individuals. These individuals. So again, that can be used as a subordinating conjunction or relative pronoun. Relative pronoun. Okay?
And when it's a relative pronoun, is when it has a verb next to it.
Yes, it's going to have a verb right next to it. Good point. Good point. All right. Very good. So let's move on. My examples, I have two more, and then we'll go to where you're going to participate. So I will ask, Ricardo, I will ask you on this one, whether it's essential or non-essential, and Alma, I will ask you whether this is essential or non-essential, okay? All right. However, the FBI did not interview a good number of individuals who requested an interview with the FBI. Who requested an interview with the FBI. Has no comma. So Ricardo, is this essential or non-essential?
Essential.
Essential. You're totally right. This is general. We don't know who they are, so we need this information. Hundreds of women who believe Dr. Ford's allegation demonstrated outside the Senate and the Supreme Court. Who believe Dr. Ford's allegation, Alma, has no comma. Is this essential or non-essential? Essential also. Women is general. They are not identified. So we need this information to find out who are the women who believe Dr. Ford's allegation. Very good. So hopefully you are understanding the difference between essential and non-essential dependent clauses. Here is one more. And Douglas, if you can tell me whether this one is essential or non-essential, and Luis, if you can tell me whether this one is essential or non-essential. President Trump, who does not believe Dr. Ford's allegations, is happy that Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed as a Supreme Court judge. Who does not believe Dr. Ford's allegations? Is that a essential or non-essential dependent clause?
Non-essential.
Non-essential. Non-essential because here is a specific person, President Trump. So we already know that's a specific person. This can be left out. And that Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed as a Supreme Court judge, no comma, is that essential or non-essential?
Not essential.
Not essential. Do you agree?
No, it's essential.
It's essential. It's essential. When you know, that's interesting. Here we have the name
The person, right?
of a person, and so this is non-essential. But the problem is that's not a relative pronoun. This one is not a relative pronoun. Here's the verb. Here's the verb. What's the subject of the verb? Brett Kavanaugh. So that makes this word a subordinating conjunction. Okay, but still, why is it a essential dependent clause?
I don't know, but I mean, President Trump is happy but why is he happy? Like,
Well,
give a reason for why.
I think the difference is that you're going to have essential and non-essential when you have relative pronouns. When you have relative pronouns. Not when you have subordinating conjunction. This is a relative pronoun because it represents students. And it's a relative pronoun because there's the verb and that is the subject. You see the difference? Relative pronoun. But here, that's not a relative pronoun. This is a dependent clause that is connecting the two clauses. I know that point is a little tricky. So you have to remember relative pronouns from subordinating conjunctions. Okay? All right, very good. So maybe I shouldn't have asked Luis whether it was essential or not essential. I shouldn't have asked that because that's not a relative pronoun. I apologize to Luis. All right, very good. So now, this is the part, give him 2 points. So now this is the part where I bring in sentences from this story that we read last semester in another class that was called The Woman Who Disappeared. Now this is how I want you to deal with these, okay? I'm going to show you a sentence. I'll do the first one, okay? I'm going to read it first, and then I'll read the dependent clause, okay? Lenny Samuel is a private detective who will work for anyone who will pay him. This sentence has 2 dependent clauses. The first one is, who will work for anyone. The second one is, who will pay him. These 2 dependent clauses begin with a relative pronoun. Yes. Okay? All right. So this is what I want you to do. And Jessica, you're going to be first, and you're going to read very loud, Jessica. And you're going to read the sentence, and then read the dependent clause. The dependent clause from beginning to end. Okay? All right. Very good. So let me erase this so it doesn't confuse you. But first, I have to show you that those are the 2 dependent clauses, and I want to show you the verbs. All right, so here's the second sentence. Go ahead.
There are 4 chairs in the waiting room. Also, there are never 4 people waiting to see see me.
Very good. Dependent clause.
Although there are never four people waiting to see me.
Excellent. Although there are never four people waiting to see me. There is the dependent clause, and there are the verb and people. People comes after are, in this case, because of the word there, correct? Very good. Sandra, nice and loud, please read me this sentence.
When there is a lot of work, I sometimes sleep in the office.
Dependent clause.
When there is a lot of work.
When there is a lot of work. Excellent. There it is. And there are the verb and the subject. It comes after because of the word there. Very good. Kayla, nice and loud. Here we go. Okay. Dependent clause. No. No. Dependent clause. Monica. That I'm ugly. It has to begin with a subordinate conjunction or a relative pronoun. And here, this is the dependent clause. That's right. And that's the subject, and that's the verb. So Monica, do this one for us. Shout it.
Shout it and put away the scissors. I have been putting my nails with.
Dependent clause.
I have been putting my nails with.
I have been cutting my nails with.
We need that.
That's right. That is in there, but we cannot see it. This is correct. There, subject and verb, and there is that. Okay? Yvette, read us this sentence, please.
The door opened and in walked one of the most beautiful women I had ever seen.
Very good. Dependent clause. I had ever seen.
And it's the same thing like
Beautiful.
the other one?
It's the same thing like the other one. Exactly right. Subject, verb, and there is that. Okay? Very good. Dulce, let's do this one.
I had a good nose until someone broke it in a fight last year.
Very good. Dependent clause.
It begins until someone broke it in a fight last year.
Until someone broke it in a fight last year. Very good. Subject and verb. Here we go. Consuelo, please read.
I need to say the road is long, but I don't know if you will be able to help me.
Dependent clause.
If you will be able to help me.
Exactly right. If you will be able to help me. There is a subject and there's a verb. So, Guadalupe, this one please.
Perhaps your sister didn't come because she was behind the food.
Dependent clause. She doesn't like the food you cook, beginning here? Because. That's right. Because she doesn't like the food you cook. It ends right here? You think so? No? Where does it end? Because she doesn't... Because she doesn't like the food? To the end? The food you cook? How do you see it, Alberto? Do you think this dependent clause ends here or here? Did you say food or cook? Food. Cook. Yeah. Alma. In food. It ends in food. There is a second one.
That you cook.
Yeah.
That you
The food that you cook. Two dependent clauses. Okay? Alright, very good. Alberto, go ahead and read this one. Dependent clause. Excellent. Subject and verb. Maria, next one. There is the dependent clause on that one. There is the subject and verb. So, Maria, how about this one? Very good. Dependent clause? Yeah. Your homework is to write sentences with as, right? And here, this is where two things are happening at the same time. Two things are happening at the same time. As I watched her walk out, I smiled. Okay? So this is as a subordinating conjunction. And you are right, Maria. That's the dependent clause. That's the verb and subject. Angel, please read this one.
After the blonde girl, after I had left my office, I looked at the two addresses which she had
Written?
written on the piece of paper.
Very good. Dependent clause or clauses.
After the blonde girl had left my office.
Very good. Do you see another one by any chance?
Yeah.
Can you read that one?
Which she had written on a piece of paper.
Which she had written on a piece of paper. Which she had written on a piece of paper. You're totally right. And there are the subjects and the verbs of these dependent clauses. This is the independent clause. I looked at the two addresses. Very good. Wendelin, did I go too fast? So I'll give you another one. Here's the next one, Wendelin. That's the subject and verb of that one. Can you read this one?
I rang the bell for 5 minutes before he answered the door.
Dependent clause?
Before he answered the door.
Before he answered the door. Yes. And there's no comma, huh? There's no comma in this sentence. Can you tell me why?
You only can say I rang the bell for 5 minutes.
No, that's not the reason. The reason is that the dependent clause comes after the independent. If this was at the beginning, before she answered the door, comma, I rang the bell for 5 minutes. When the dependent clause comes after, no comma. No comma. So there is the subject and the verb. Araceli, can you read this one?
I walked up the narrow dark stairs until I came to the fifth floor.
Very good. I walked up the narrow, dark stairs until I came to the 5th floor. Dependent clause?
Until I came to the fifth floor.
Excellent, excellent. This is the subject and that's the verb. By the way, you see this comma?
Yes.
This comma is a little unusual. This comma we use when there are two adjectives, dark and narrow. And instead of saying dark and narrow, we can say dark, narrow, dark. Narrow, dark stairways. Or narrow, dark stairs. Do you see that? It's a way of eliminating one word. One word. Replacing and with a comma. Very good. So, Ricardo, could you read this one?
I was thinking about all the things which had happened since I had met Helen Garfield the day before.
Dependent clause?
Which had happened since.
Do you see another one by any chance? No. Alma, do you see the second one?
Since I have met Ramon.
Yes, since I had met Helen Garfield the day before. There they are, subjects and the verbs. Alma, could you read this one? Very good. Dependent clause? Is that the only one? Which was worrying me. Two of them. Notice that no comma. This is essential. I guess things are specific enough, but maybe there could be a comma there. Douglas, there's a subject and a verb for the one that Alma did. How about this one, Douglas? Can you read it?
I think you know more about Benny gives that than you say you do.
Very good. Dependent clause or dependent clauses.
Then you say?
Then you say. Yes, that's one. Any other?
You do.
That you do.
You do.
You do. So these two.
What about I think you love me more? I do that.
Yes. Who said this? Very good. It's got three. It has three. There they are. That is missing and that is missing. Subjects and verbs. And there, that is in there and that is in there. Three dependent clauses. Very good. Luis, can you read this one?
I told her how I had got away from the yellow car.
Very good. Dependent clause.
How I have. No. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Is the only one? How I had.
Yeah. Well,
Is that how
I had got away.
from the yellow car?
Yeah, because the subject is I, had got is the verb, and this is the natural ending of it. So that's it. Okay. So there's one more for Jessica. Go ahead, Jessica.
The car that was following Glennie somewhere was a little yellow car.
Dependent clause.
That was following Glennie somewhere.
Excellent. And that's relative pronoun because it's the subject of this verb. This is the car. We don't know which one, so this is essential. No comma. Very good. So I want to conclude by showing you all the words that create dependent clauses. These are all of them. The subordinating conjunctions and the relative pronouns. Now you are going to compete as groups in identifying the dependent clauses in part 2 of the article relating to Linda and Stuart Resnick. Okay? All right, here we go.